Hi, this is Ed in San Diego, and you're on Global TV Talk Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. Our guest, author StevenHoward, will be with us briefly. Meanwhile, I want you to know that his new book, number 22, called Humany Leadership, it's part of humanyleadership.com. Humany is spelled Humony. It's a word he made up, bringing together humans and harmony with an eye towards workplace development, talent development through coaching and a step-by-step mechanism that he's developed. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're also going to be talking about this hot concept, well-being in the workplace, well-being at home, well-being in the communities, and God knows we need it. So let's welcome StevenHoward. We'll be right back. And here we are with StevenHoward. Welcome again.
Welcome, Ed. How good to see you. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. And so the series, the beat goes on. The series continues with author StevenHoward, and the author of this hot book, Humany, Humony. Steven comes to us today from his perch in Mexico City. Welcome.
Thank you. And it's kind of a perch sitting here at, I don't know, several thousand feet above sea level.
Yeah. So what's the weather like today?
It's gorgeous. We're into our springtime here. So we're going to have low 70s, high 70s, low 80s, I guess. Very nice.
Yeah, well, that's great. Here in San Diego, yesterday was a beautiful day. And today cloudy, and a new rainstorm is approaching.
Another one. My gosh, how many storms are you going to get this winter?
I don't know. They say it's going to dry out next week, but we'll see about that.
Okay.
March. So March is the 3rd anniversary of Global TV Talk Show. And I thank you for your kind interest in us over the many months and many topics.
It's been great to watch your growth over the 3 years. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years already, but I love all the different programs that you have on a regular basis.
You know what? It's not work. I love doing this, and it's love creating it, and yet I'm being fed. Not so much by sponsors, but I wish that would change too. But by the energy and experience and intellect of the guests. And frankly, you're at the top of that list. So thank you. So tell me about our recent mastermind episodes having to do with well-being. It's not mental health. And do employees care about this? Do they think it's bullshit?
I think they care a lot about it. And one from the ones I talk with, employees, not just leaders, but the actual workers. But secondly, the research last year by a company called GymPass in the United States, but it showed that 83% of employees worldwide say their well-being is just important as their salary. And and that's great. I mean, that shows the importance of it. And I've seen other research that basically show that when it comes to burnout, people will leave an organization that doesn't support them in getting through burnout for an organization that does. So yeah, I think they do believe it. But you know what, Ed, I think it's not just workers. I think everybody does. A very interesting piece of research came out a couple of days ago. And again, in the United States, physical activity has gone up. Trying to look at the data here, but let's do it the other way. Americans who do no physical activity decreased from 27% to 22% in the last 5 years. So people are more active. I think people understand from the pandemic that we need to take care of ourselves and physical. People are doing it on their own. And I think people are looking to the workplace to ensure that we go into workplaces that are, in my words, harmonized, but that our workplaces of well-being.
So Joanna and I go out for walks every afternoon when possible, most of the time. And she's into this grind of achieving 10,000 steps a day. And that's a bit much for me, but I get a lot of it. Yesterday, we went out on here in San Diego, Shelter Island, which is Point Loma area, just around the harbor. And it's the America's Cup harbor, celebrating Dennis Conner, who's a local resident. And he has that boat, that huge sailboat for rent. He takes groups out, people out, they rent a seat, and it's right here in the harbor. So anyway, we do that, and that probably keeps me healthier than I have a right to be, I think. I don't know. Like I'm sitting down here, I should stand up and move around, you know, but I haven't, and I'm not going to now. But well-being is mental health, but that's not the word anymore. It's just a sense of well-being, being looked at after, taken care of to some extent. It's not a nanny state thing, not a socialistic thing. It's about common sense.
It is, and you know, and you can joke about your walk, but you know what? I would argue that if you did 4,000 steps, but you're out there getting that sea breeze and that fresh air, that's just as good as somebody who's walking 10,000 steps in Manhattan or someplace like that. But no, and you know, I like to talk about mental well-being. Unfortunately, mental health, the phrase, still has a stigma, particularly in the workplace. But you know, there's all kinds of things you can do to reduce your stress and to have workplaces of well-being. I mean, having mental refresher breaks, encouraging your staff, being the role model. Go out as you just did. You know, go out for 15 minutes and get some fresh air and de-stress yourself. Use your lunch in your break periods for socializing, not for working. I mean, how many people work at their desk or but I'll give you one clue here for your audience that I've been preaching, you know, because my previous book was about had a good portion of the book was about brain health. And so one of the things I've encouraged leaders to do, if you control the agenda for a meeting, is start having 45-minute and 75-minute meetings, because most meetings in the workplace are 60 minutes or 90 minutes. Everyone runs back-to-back meetings. And if you run like right now, if you have this conversation with me, and if you just jump into the next interview, the next program, your brain is still going to be partly digesting what you and I've talked about, and you won't be fully present with your next guest. So same thing,
or refreshed.
Yeah. So same thing in the business world. So, you know, if you're running back-to-back meeting, you're going to spend the first 5 or 6 minutes, your brain's going to spend it digesting what you've just been talking about, and you're not fully present for whatever is being discussed. So the reason I say 45-minute meetings, give your brain 5 minutes to gel, consolidate the information of what you've just talked about. Take 5 minutes and get away from everything. Get some fresh air. Don't look at social media. Don't look at your emails. Don't look at your text messages. Give your brain a rest, and then 5 minutes to prepare for the next meeting. So a little 15-minute interlude in between meetings is one of the best things you can do as for yourself and for your staff to reduce stress, to reduce anxiety, and make everyone more fresh and more productive, quite frankly.
Yeah, I have a meeting at the top of the hour on world politics. So I've got to prepare for that one. So we're going to end this one before 8:30 my local time here. You're 10:30.
Absolutely. You need that
get some air
before you start talking politics in today's situation.
Maybe even brush my teeth again. I don't know.
Go out and get some fresh air.
Okay, so yesterday's show on the masterminds that you participated in, I thought that was one of the most interesting conversations, and from a depth and enjoyment quotient, not from me, but from the people who are on the show.
Yeah.
It was evident.
It was evident, and I hope people will watch that, because the nice thing about your guests is that so many people are willing to contribute their ideas and their thoughts, and no one's trying to sell anything. No one's saying, oh, go buy my training program here, or go buy my book here, or go do this. It's just saying, hey, these are things that people should be taking into consideration. This is what's happening in the world. So it's great.
Yeah, interesting. So my friend Tori and his partner Andrew Woods, who wasn't on the show, they wrote that book Audacious Ask, and they asked me to be a part of that. So about being an entrepreneur, and why was I willing to self-flagellate and endure the valleys as well as the peaks. And so I was one of 12 people or so that they interviewed and published. And that's like the third or fourth show that he has been on, this young man, and he really enjoys the conversation, and he enjoyed listening to you too. So it was really interesting. And in March, coming up next week, we start a month-long series with your friend, Dr. Lynn Schmidt.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we did that last year, celebrating the idea of International Women's Month. And so it was an interesting experiment last year, and it worked a lot. So it worked well. And so I said, hey, why don't we do it again? And let's do something every day. And she didn't want to do that. But so she's going to be on 4 or 5 shows, and starting on March 1.
Excellent.
And ending on March 30. Yeah. So it's really going to be interesting. I'll send you an invite.
That should be good. Yeah, well, Women's International Month starts on March 1st, and then International Women's Day is, of course, the 8th of March. So that should be quite an interesting show.
Yeah, and we're going to do a focus on Latin America, and I invited Adriana to be on that particular show.
She mentioned that. Yeah, she mentioned that.
That'll be later in the month. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to Humany. Humany, is it available on Kindle?
Yeah, it's available on Kindle, and for the first time, the book's Human Leadership. It's also available in audiobook. I've never done an audiobook version of any of my previous works. So I had somebody reach out to me, and he did a nice job. He has a nice voice, and one of my problems with audiobooks is I never have the time to sit there and record an entire book. And I don't, as most people, I don't really like my voice either. So, but he did a really good job, and so it's in paperback format, it's in Kindle format, and now it's in audiobook format.
There it goes, HUMONY. Please hold up the cover.
I always have one nearby somewhere.
Yeah, okay, and go up a little bit, and that image is double-headed. What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, well, I have a graphic designer here in Mexico City, and he had this concept about human leadership is really about how you connect with other people as a leader. And so that back to back, the two brains or the two head silhouettes, purposely meant to be non-gender specific, and just a connection point between people. And that, I think that's one of the silver linings that came out of the pandemic, quite frankly, is people do want more human connection. Unfortunately, too much of our human connection in today's world, or I was just talking yesterday about it. If you look at your social media feeds, what are our human connections that we see? We see people getting angry on airplanes. We see people shouting at airline staff. We see people fighting at sporting events. I mean, I can't tell how many videos I've seen in the last 6 months of people throwing punches at each other at a public sporting event. So, and of course, we've got the so-called Karens, abusing people of color with harsh language. So, unfortunately, too much of our connection is disharmonized. And so that's one of the reasons in the word humany is based on the word human and harmony. And I believe we not just only need more connections in our life, both personal and in the workplace, but we need more harmony in our life. And so that's the basis of the book, and I think that's the basis of the art illustration is the two connections coming together in a harmonized manner.
So tell me about the research that you have about that led to the book being published and the idea of well-being, which is sort of intertwined with humany, right?
Yeah, it is, and well-being, and I mean my concept of humany mindset is that you would, for yourself, you would create a life of well-being and harmony, and then you would interact with other people in manners that would, you know, show respect, that showed kindness, that showed compassion to each other, and you know, that would be both human and harmony combined. But most of the research, because of the book, is based really for leaders in the workplace. I mean, things like the American Institute of Stress. Yeah, believe it or not, we actually have an American Institute of Stress, and it showed that 40% of workers report their jobs as either very or extremely stressful. By the way, all this data was before the pandemic, because I started writing the book before the pandemic. 25% of employees view their jobs as their number one stressor in life. And that's changed. I mean, you go back 20, 30 years, the top two stressors in people's lives were financial worries and family concerns, whether it was a spousal, you know, issue or teenage children or your extended family. Those used to be the key stressors, but now it's the workplace. And here was the one that I really pegged into, was that 42%, or sorry, nearly half of workers, I think it's like 48%, said that they need, 48% of workers admit they need help in learning how to manage stress. And 42% say that their coworkers need help. And so they need help, and where do you go to get help? Because of the stigma around mental health, the stigma around burnout. And so, you know, part of what I talk about in the book is that leaders have to understand how to help people cope with stress and how to cope with burnout, and understand what are the top causes of burnout. So yeah, so that's part of the research. The other part of the research, things like the research shows that when people hit the burnout stage, 63% are more likely to take a sick day, 23% are more likely to visit an emergency room, and they are 2.6 times more likely to seek a different job. So 2.5 more likely than their colleagues. If you hit burnout, you're 2.5 times more likely to go look for a job somewhere else rather than stay with your current employer. So big statistics there that show this is, and again, this is pre-pandemic, and it hasn't, you know, the pandemic didn't help the situation at all.
So can we spend about 5 or 6 minutes or so on the idea of show us how you should coach me? Let's say I'm I'm reporting to you, and I need help doing something, okay, in your eyes, or I can be better at get more into my job so I can be more productive for the company. And you see a pathway that apparently I'm not seeing. And so how would you take me aside? This is like a one-on-one thing, right? And instruct me on how to open my mind or do something different or look that way or not this way. Just step by step. And then that becomes a measurable thing too.
You know, in today's world, for most people, I'd back away from the word instruct, and I would do more of a coaching approach to it, and would say things like, Ed, what are your biggest hurdles? Look, you know, here's some results. We've achieved this, but we wanted to achieve higher. What were some of the obstacles in your way? What were some of the hurdles? What do you think could be improved with our processes? And, you know, and you might come back to say things like, yeah, I got too much on my plate. And I'll talk to you about, well, how are you prioritizing? Which of your projects do you see as your biggest priority? And I would then, as your supervisor or, leader, I would say, okay, from my perspective, yes, A is your top priority, but I think C is more important than B. Let's talk about that. Why do you see B being more important? I'll tell you why I see C, and what could we do to escalate B, and what would you think if we put C on the back burner for a little while? And you might be, particularly if I lead 13 or 15 or more people, you might legitimately come back to me and say, well, C is important because it's in my goals for the year. It's in my MBOs, my objectives. Okay. Let's take that and consider, okay, what if we change your MBOs? We're, only in the third month of the year, and let's make C more important. Let's change your MBOs here a little bit. What resources do you need? And I'd want to hear from you first. And then I might have my own ideas, but the reason for this is, and for instance, reprioritization. I may know that you're not doing a good job prioritizing your work, but I want to hear it from you. Because if you identify the problem, and more importantly, if you suggest the solution that I agree with as your leader, now I'm going to get buy-in because it's your idea, not my idea. And if you come up with a solution, yeah, maybe I could do this, or maybe I could get somebody else to do half of project B, and so I could focus on C. Hey, that's a great idea, Ed. Let's try that. Let's get that person in the room. Let's see if they can handle. You delegate half that task to them. Great idea. Now it's your idea, Ed. You own it. You're going to be more willing to implement it. Whereas if I come up with it, it's my idea. And now you're doing it because I'm your boss. You're doing it more reluctantly. You accept to do it, but you don't have any passion for my idea. You have a passion for your idea.
So what I'm hearing is that I need to write down or to enunciate to myself, if not to you, one thing that I really want to do. Mm-hmm. And your take on that is, from what I'm hearing, is that I need to be clear and own it and talk about it, rather than leave it in a list of to-dos.
Yeah, if possible. And look, and one of the biggest mistakes that so many, particularly first-time leaders make, but even experienced leaders make it, we have this conversation once and we want to resolve it once. One of the things I coach people on is, hey, maybe Ed, you tell me I don't have an idea. I really don't know. You know what, Ed, why don't you think about it for 2 days? I'd really like to hear your ideas, and because maybe I've caught you unawares, or maybe no one's ever asked you for your thoughts before. So take a couple days. Hey, you know what? It's how about Thursday at 10:30? How's that work for your schedule? Can we get 20 minutes together? And I'd like you to come back and just tell me any ideas you have for how you might reprioritize everything that's on your plate, and let it go at that. Because one, it shows you that I want to hear your ideas. Two, it helps build trust because I want to listen to you. And you're probably, and now if you do come back on Thursday and say, no, I've been thinking about this, I don't have any ideas, well, then it's okay. Maybe I'll tell you what my ideas are, but I've given you the opportunity to come up with ideas. And I would argue 90+% of the people, let's say 93% of the people will do so. Well, for the 5 or 6 or 7% who can't do it, won't do it, now that's a different coaching discussion about how to help them think through things, and takes more coaching, more mentoring. But on Thursday, you're going to come back to me with some good ideas.
In the early days of my business career, when I worked for someone else rather than in my own shop, I can't remember anyone ever doing it that way.
No, probably not. I didn't have a whole lot of human leaders in my life either. I had maybe one who came close, but no, but you know what? 20, 30 years ago, leadership was all about, I'm going to tell you what to do. A leader had to be the smartest person. The leader had to have all the answers. Today, you can't do that. To me, a good leader is not the smartest person in the room. A good leader is the one who creates the smartest room, gets the smartest people together, and gets them to collaborate and work on solutions. But yeah, no, this is a different approach, without a doubt. But we're hiring smarter people today. You know, we're not hiring people. We shouldn't just be hiring people to do tasks. We should be hiring people to think. And what I've done now is giving you 48 hours to think. And that's what we should be doing as leaders. That's why we hire people, hopefully.
Well, this is the tip of the day from author Stephen Howard, and I've got something in mind. I'm not going to blurt it out here to the world,
Okay.
but
All right. Well, we can have
actually, I will.
offline
I
coach.
want more member
Oh,
subscribers to the Global Press Club, and I've got an outline and I've got a website on it, but I don't think I'm doing enough to explain it.
we can have an offline coaching session. I'll give you my calendar link. We can talk next week.
Thanks for being on Global TV Talk Show.
My pleasure, Ed. I always look forward to these. Enjoy
Come
the rest
back
of your
again.
week. I probably will. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Cheers.